ahead of schedule, which is great because the next thing that we're going to talk about that's on the agenda is a survey that our executive board put together. A lot of the work that we do is around advocating for preservation and maintenance, around increased funding for just transportation in general, all forms of transportation really. And we decided to put together a survey, and that survey we first sent out to after filing week. We sent that survey out looking through the Secretary of State's website, had access to every person that filed for elected office. We had access to their emails. And so we sent it out to, I believe, nearly about 500 folks around the state of Washington that filed for elected office. Then we thought, let's expand this. We got some pretty good response from folks that are running for elected position. So you'll see in the results here that we're going to get to in a minute. We sent it out in basically 3 different buckets. We sent it out to folks running for elected office in 2024. We sent it out to our membership organizations that belong to the Washington State Good Roads, and then we sent it out to through a social media push through Facebook. We sent it out to all Washingtonians. We got about 25,000 impressions, 25 or 30,000 impressions there. So why don't we start? So again, who we targeted. Here's some of the numbers of responses that we received back from candidates that were running for political office in 2024. We received 68 responses back. For membership organizations that belong to Washington State Good Roads, we received 27 responses. And Washingtonians or Washington drivers, we received about a little over 160 responses. The first initial push, once the ball got rolling on this, we decided that it was, something that people were looking at and looking forward to, and we're getting more and more responses. We did an initial 2-week blast out on Facebook, and we received probably over 100 or 120 of those initial responses. And then we were coming up on this meeting, and we decided we want to report out at this meeting some of our findings. And so we did a last little quick blast for like 3 to 5 days, and I don't think we got the responses that we got back on the first initial blast of 2 weeks. So I was hoping for about 200 responses. We got 162. I think that's a pretty good sample size, though. Again, why did we do it? We wanted to hear from different perspectives, and we targeted 3 different groups of individuals. Because some individuals, like our Washington State Good Roads members, might have more depth of knowledge in the issues that we talk about all the time, compared to residents of Washington that might not be as educated on some of the same issues, right? So attacked different areas. We've been talking about a bunch of different revenue sources through this group and 2 legislators, through other groups, through WOOF, wherever, and wanted to put some of those revenue sources out there to see what the support or opposition for them would be. Raise awareness of the 18th Amendment and the transition or possible transition over to the road usage charge, the RUC. So all those were part of this survey. So I'm not in the business to sit here and reading to you, so I'm just going to leave the slide up here, let you kind of look over the questions that we asked. These are verbatim the questions that we asked on our survey. So if you want to take a moment, check those out. This presentation we will send out to everybody on the call here and to all of our membership, so you can kind of get an idea. We were trying to be maybe not so persuasive at all in a certain way. We were trying to be kind of neutral, and I think the results kind of showed that we did a pretty good job asking these questions. You can see number 5 there is the different type of revenue sources: multimodal fund, general fund, sales tax on autos. Dave, did you want to add anything to anything you're saying?
No, I think just the point is that to try to take it take the questions in a way that would help to inform us too. We want to make sure that we're not in some kind of a wonky echo chamber that we come up with things that we think are of value to the traveling public, and we want to be informed with what the legislators are thinking, or the folks running for office, what folks in similar groups are thinking, and then the traveling public, and to inform them a little bit, kind of a mirror image of, these are the things, as a question 5 here, these are the things that have been talked about in the legislature in the last year or two as the funding crisis has kind of come to fore. Are there other better ways to go about it? Have them understand that, maybe a sales tax on tires, that might be a new way to fund a small portion of things, but the sales tax on cars, autos and trucks are already being collected. So that would be a diversion from the general fund. So it's not really increasing their out-of-pocket costs, but it is bringing that money from the general fund into to preservation and transportation overall. The places that we've got huge holes in, and a lot of these funding crises have kind of come to the fore in the last year. Overruns in Fish Passage, overrun in mega projects, so ferry costs, and huge backlog in preservation and maintenance. That the Vantage Bridges, as Brian said, is just one of all. The bridges are in similar shape all over the place. And the pictures that he showed you there are not the most frightening ones. There are some that are even worse that are not being addressed, and the backlog of that kind of funding is just becoming huge. So we have to find an answer, or many answers, to get our transportation system back, our highway system back and up and running full steam for commerce, for travel, for recreation, etc. So we just want to both educate and find out what others are thinking. So that's all I really have to come.
So thanks to Brian. Thank you, Brian Ziegler, our great secretary. He helped us compile. We had it all kind of formulated into a pie chart, but Brian helped us to condense a little bit on this line chart here. So you'll see there's going to be 2 slides for every single group of folks. And again, they're all individual. All the survey went out to 3 different groups. Here is the candidate responses. So the 63 or 68 folks that filled out the survey. Here's what if they strongly agree in red, agree, neither of them want to take a side, disagree, strongly disagree, whatever. So you can see here that the number 1, if you add the 2, strongly agree and agree, you're up well over 80%, nearly 90%, that all new transportation revenue, or all new transportation revenues must be, or revenues for transportation must be accompanied by underneath the 18th Amendment. Question number 1, are we experiencing declining payment conditions? That number is around 90% between the 2. You can see on here, but I think what you're gonna see throughout is you're gonna see a commonality of kind of the responses too. So on the next slide, on the candidate responses, you'll see here, this is question 5, and it has all the different revenue sources, and you support these different revenue sources being used for transportation purposes. So you can see the support from the general fund. I think you'll see a common thread there, that people support transferring general fund revenue over to transportation issues.
Hey, Billy?
Yeah.
The blue, sorry, I can't say it. Blue, is that agree or strongly?
Sorry, yeah. Blue is support. Yep.
It's different color on the last one, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, sorry. Blue is support. If you can't see that, red is neutral, and yellow is opposed, and green is if they left it blank. So Lou, you're looking at the blue. The blue is support, and you'll see the percentages at the bottom there. So general fund support is around 65% from those candidates that are running for office here in Washington State in 2024. You'll see the bottom is probably a sales tax on parts. So again, like Dave mentioned, that's not a new tax. That would just be taking the sales tax on automobile parts and tying that to the 18th Amendment, or, you know, using it to transportation purposes, right? Sales tax on tires would be a new tax, right? And that's, has nearly 50% support. And the RUC, you'll see there, around 30%. There's a lot of, you'll kind of notice on the RUC, you'll see the opposition there, maybe it's. That's stating that if there is a revenue, or if there is a RUC put in place, but you'll see a general theme of kind of oppositions towards the RUC throughout the theme here. The next one you'll see, Good Roads members, so that 27 folks that are members to the Washington State Good Roads that filled out the candidate survey. You know, question one, down there at the bottom, are we experiencing declining pavement conditions? Nearly 90% either agree or strongly agree, right? You'll see, subject to the 18th Amendment protections, you'll see strongly agree is up over 80%. We need to eliminate a preservation backlog, right? Over 50% strongly agree with, you know, that number jumping over 80% with agree or strongly agree. So again, these are folks that are members to this association. You would probably assume that they are maybe the most educated, on these topics around transportation revenue. So kind of see some similar responses there. The next slide. Again, the different, revenue sources there. You see, we talked about the sales tax on auto parts. On the last one was like around 30%, it jumped up to a little over 40%. General fund here is nearly 70% support. So I think the last one's around 60, so it's about the same there. So again, a lot of these would just be a diversion from, or a transition from taxes that now go into the general fund that would then go towards transportation purposes, sales tax on state construction projects, sales tax on auto parts, sales tax on autos. You can see that this group is saying that they would support at about 65% a transition from sales tax automobiles to the general fund over to transportation purposes.
So that would presume that the legislature agrees to take some general fund money.
These, Vic, are folks, these are our member organizations here. The first ones were candidates that were running for office, and
But Representative 5 said, well, yeah, we could support moving sales tax and new and used cars to the road or vehicle fund, as long as you replace the $2 billion in the general fund for what is normally being spent by some other folks. And
yeah,
of course, we don't have that, so we can't do it.
Well, Vic, what we're pushing now is to try to get it moved over per biennium. If we do 10%, maybe 20% per biennium, it'd take 10 to 20 years. But that's the sustainable funding that would grow and
Right.
keep up. So
so
those
general
conversations,
go over time.
those conversations be had, that gives them the opportunity to adjust on the back end on the budget. So I think that's our greatest hope.
Yeah, and some of these items like the sales tax on tires might be a great idea, but they don't backfill much of the whole. It's, you know, 10% of the need, 5%.
We might be looking at 120 million. That would be optimistic.
10% of the need. So just in preservation. So they might be a good idea, but they're not gonna be some one of these might help. But obviously the general fund could backfill as much as they like, and sales tax on autos after time would start actually filling that hole. But sales tax on tires would be.
That could potentially keep up with the loss of revenues and gas tax
Mhm.
with bringing over that sales tax on autos. So we should be able to not only offset it, but maybe even grow that revenue. I'm surprised the sales tax, I'm glad to see that on the tires. But we have to be careful there because that affects families. I mean, you're talking about Mini Cooper all the way up to tractor trailers. So,
Yeah.
and that's what's beating the piss out of the roads, let's be honest. Every vehicle has those.
So we can get
You got it.
get through this, so we can get to the next part of the agenda too. So the next slide. is the biggest subset of individuals, so Washington residents.
Sorry.
That's all right. So these are Washington drivers, essentially, Washington residents that seen a survey either on our website. Oh, she's next. Next one still, he's still the members. There we go. Essentially, seeing this on our Facebook page, on our website, it was just pushed out through social media, so you can see the responses here. Little different, right? Question one, are we experiencing declining pavement condition? 70% strongly agree. That number, look at that number, pushed to nearly 95% of just Washington residents, Washington drivers, either agree or strongly agree that we are experiencing declining pavement issues or condition. 18th Amendment protections, right? Strongly agree, over 80%. They understand, do most of Washington residents understand the 18th Amendment? The question that we asked them kind of explained it a little bit, so they got some education around it. Should preservation be the highest priority? You add the two together, you're pushing over 70%, but you have over 40% strongly agree, right? The next one, different revenue sources again. The strongest support, again, the blue is support, over 50% transferred from the general fund. The next of it, you know, can you tell a little bit of difference here from Washington residents compared to the other two slides? There's not a lot of appetite. If you add the two together, either neutral or support, the only one that's even at 50% is the general fund transfer, right? Now, some of these, again, are not new taxes, but the appetite, when you say that three-letter word to some Washington residents, they maybe see everything as a brand new tax too as well. So, some a little bit different results there from the other two slides, the other two subset, the other two groups. The second time, again, it's all gonna get sent out. I wanna move along. There was one question that we did not take into consideration on the other two slides for each of the different subgroups. So question 7 here is around culvert, fish passage. And then the question we asked, are you okay with diverting funds that right now, these projects are getting paid by transportation dollars? Are you okay with taking money from the general fund to fund these different projects? So you'll see that the candidates are 85%. Good Roads members, it was 23 or only one person said no. And then Washington drivers, nearly 2 out of every 3 say that we need to take care of this $4 billion additional cost, plus whatever we can do to get out of court order, by spending whatever revenues are possible. So 74, nearly 3 out of 4 of everyone surveyed, support using non-transportation fund for fish passage, projects. I see a question in the chat.
Very good.
So the next slide, please. Okay, there was a spot, if you're taking the survey, you've probably seen that, but there's a spot after every single survey question to give a comment. So we received nearly 900 comments complete throughout all the different people that filled out the survey. So you can see the numbers there. A lot of passionate individuals. You know, we'll on the next slide, I don't want to get there yet, but on the next slide, we'll have some comments to some of the we pulled some of the comments there. Facebook Insights reached over 16,000 individuals. FYI, we spent $200 boosting this post throughout the social media atmosphere. $200. Over 20,000 impressions. Was shared 46 times. 350 comments. You can see that we've got a pretty good response here for $200 and putting together a survey. So, next slide. The next couple slides are a couple pages of comments that we received, and they were, you'll see the comments were on underneath the different questions that experiencing declining pavement conditions. You see some of the comments there. Again, there was a lot of passionate comments, a lot of comments that maybe, can't be read on radio or TV. But there was a lot, there was a lot of stuff there, a lot of good comments too as well, but for time's sake, for the next slide, I took one or two comments from each of the different questions. And then additional comments, there was probably 100 or more just additional comments at the very end too, just around the survey in general, the questions, just condition of our transportation system in general too. The very last one there, everything to on the transit, making them a priority. The next slide. So mulling over the survey, mulling over the results, here are some of the takeaways that we, Washington State Good Roads and myself thought came out of this, citizens, as you see in those results on the new taxes, heavily resistant, any new taxes. General fund was the top option, we've seen that. Fish passage work, you've seen that, even they all had over 50% support. I think the lowest was 65% on diverting non-transportation funds to do those projects. 18th Amendment protections. And we didn't really talk too much about it, but if you look back to the results, the survey and the presentation, which we'll send out again, the support for the RUF was well under 50% by all that responded. And you see that last one, that was very question number one. 90% of all respondees strongly agreed or agreed that we are experiencing declining pavement conditions. Dave, did you have anything else you wanted?
No, I think we did not go into this with any preconceived conditions or people have thought about that as being a transitional way to fund transportation, and it was a little surprising that much resistance was already in the public mind, and that was of interest to us. But gas tax is probably even less popular, so we've got to find some way to bridge that gap. And we call it gas tax, but it's really a user fee, just like the RUC is. The more you drive, the more you pay in gas tax, but it's not keeping up with inflation. It's not keeping up with the amount of funding that we need for keeping these roads tied together and well maintained. So we got to find something, and which was what might be possible.
So the way that RUC would grow in revenue is by additional vehicle miles, which is exactly the same way.
That's true. I mean, that's
It's no different.
in its perfect form, it is no real different, but I think in the public mind, it's a new tax for one thing, but it's invasive in another way. That to have RUC, you have to know how many miles a person has traveled, and the government has to know that.
Yeah.
And it's an even more regressive tax. So
That's the other thing. Sales tax on the nice thing about the sales tax on autos or something like that is high-end auto, great, you're paying more for the roads. If you have a used auto, you don't pay as much.
And as the price, auto sale price, the revenue. So that's
Right.
that's a growing revenue source.
stable.
But pennies per gallon only grows if you sell more gallons.
It's true. We're not selling more gallons of electric cars and more efficient cars, et cetera, that's going down.
So if you have any questions, we're gonna continue on. I hope you got something out of the survey, the presentation. We'll share it out as soon as the meeting's over, probably in the next 24 or 48 hours. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or Noel. Put them in the chat. I'll try to answer them or get back to you on that. But again, hope you got something out of it.